Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry. However, we are now into the answer arcs. We are entering episode 5, and it wasn't too long ago actually that we wrapped up episode 4. We were under the impression that we were solving everything, just, coming up with these very fast answers. These, very potential solutions to the mysteries that have been brought up. And many have been brought up through this story, especially after episode 1. Shoot, I don't even know what actually happened in episode 4. Like, there was just so much stuff that occurred that made absolutely no sense. There's just no way that you can try to tie it back into, reality. You can really only argue magic in a lot of ways, just because of how things went down. It was pretty crazy. Well, we were able to walk away with some things, one of them being that Kinzo is not alive. I think that was 100% confirmed, as that Kinzo, from the very beginning of the story, when we, go to the island and everything, he is not alive. But that doesn't mean that we have room for another potential culprit. It just lessens the number by 1. I think that has been confirmed. We did have Lambda Delta kind of step in and sort of reject literally everything that Battler said. Or more like, I guess, for the most part, everything was rejected that he said. The funniest one that I think Battler said was in episode 2 with the bombs or whatever. I think that was the bit there with the candy or something. I don't know. Just a lot of the stuff that Battler was going for was really just out there. And Beatrice was like, yep, that's it. That's the answer. That solves that mystery, right? She just wasn't rejecting anything anymore. It was a possible solution, but it wasn't necessarily the solution. So we're still at it, We still have the overall mystery to solve. There's still a killer. There's still all of these events that have occurred in these different variations of the story that have to be solved. We still don't really have the idea of the closed rooms figured out that I think got brought up in episode 3, where it became a big-ass loop. But we were nearing something in episode 3 as well when Battler was working with Regalia. Anyways, let's jump in, guys. I think I know enough. I think I remember enough from episode 4. I'm pretty sure I had like a 30 to 45 minute long conclusion, or outro, I guess you could say. I was just listing off everything that I could right off the bat, just straight rambling as good as I could. But let's just continue onward. Let's see what we can continue to get. And after this episode, I will begin to go back and review a lot, especially episode 1. I've been advised not to do that yet. Let's wait until we're done with episode 5. But episode 1 is the one I really, really want to revisit because, I have some questions on a few characters. I'm very curious about some things now that we know one big thing, and that is Kinzo not being around. So who the hell were the servants talking to in each episode? Who was Beatrice talking to in each episode, supposedly? And yeah, there's a lot I wonder about. And I think episode 1 will shed some light on some things if we were to revisit it. Episode 5, End of the Golden Witch. Good morning. It's actually like almost 6 p.m. right now. Please enjoy the new game with its new game master. I say that, but the game has already reached its climax. The culprit has been cornered and merely awaits checkmate. I'm sure that there will be something that you can spot from this clearer perspective. The difficulty is fairly easy. What could possibly fool you now? I think a lot could fool me, game. I think there's a lot that can still get me. I'm sure you guys can totally agree that there's a lot that can still get me. I'm not necessarily the brightest book in the library. I'm not necessarily the, well, you guys get what I mean. Yes, I own the PS3 and PC editions, actually. I do. That is actually true. I remember shortly after starting up with episode 1, I needed to obtain the PS3 copy. Wow, we're already... The first line in episode 5, the answer arc, is me being fucking insulted. Jesus. Now, I was going to mention, yeah, I own the PS3 copy that has all the assets and the game engine and everything, and then I own both of the copies, question and answer arcs, for the PC, which are the requirements to run the Umineko project. And in case you guys don't recall, yes, I am utilizing the Umineko project. I just kind of moved it over to the Steam files, so I'm still running it off of Steam for my hour count and everything. And also another thank you to Over Codex. He's the one that got me the question and answer arc games on Steam way before I even, considered, fully jumping into this or even, testing the waters. So, same deal that we've had for all the episodes prior. Let us resume.
そなたが歪めるだろうその表情が楽しいからの他に何の理由が必要なのかほらほら目をつむらずにちゃんと見ろよほらほらほらほら魔法だよ家具だよそなたがどんなにわらわや魔法の存在を否定しようともほらほらほらほらほらほら悪いなバトラー結構面白かったぜしかしお師匠様の言う通りにしてみたんだが本当に結構いいとこまで行けたな何でもツンツンと残虐を尽くした後に程よくへたれて出れてみせると好感度ってやつが大幅アップするんだろ
Okay, so we're reviewing a few lines here from Beatrice. Some classics, if you will. And we're back here. All right. This is pretty much where we left off. That lonely tone was the desolate sound of the wind blowing by. The glittering rose petals on these bushes were all golden. The cloud of gold butterflies that had once danced through this golden rose garden like fluttering rose petals was no longer anywhere to be seen. The master of the Golden Land is the Golden Witch Beatrice. She might be called inhumane and cruel, arrogant and outrageous, or perhaps naive and simple. That laugh of hers, which lost its grace more and more the longer it continued, could no longer be heard. The Golden Witch Beatrice sat like a doll, resting in a deck chair adorned as beautifully as the golden rose garden itself. She wasn't relaxing there. Her eyes were empty. She didn't respond to any questions. Even so, she was not permitted to sleep. Beatrice sat like a doll. Her hair was down, and Virgilia was carefully tending to it with a comb. The usual Beato would surely have spent this time complaining about this and that regarding her hairstyle. However, she made no response, showed no reaction. So it really only looked like Virgilia was combing the golden hair of a large doll. There was a table alongside them. On it sat a chessboard, along with a jumble of black and white pieces locked in a closely fought battle. However, the setup looked somehow different from normal chess. Maybe the game was similar, though not identical. And on the other side, sitting back in his chair as he contemplated his next move, was a young man. No, perhaps it wasn't his next move that he contemplated. Every once in a while, he would change the positions of the pieces, reconsidering the situation after every change. Maybe he was reconstructing previous games, trying to discover the thought process behind the moves that had been made. In the past, Kinzo, the Ushiromiya family head, once said that learning chessboard arrangements was like taking a journey through the thoughts of the old masters. Ushiromiya Battler was on a journey, a search for the thought process that led the Golden Witch to create this arrangement and make these moves. Battler took a black piece that should have been moved forward and returned it to its original place, sighing deeply. Battler's pieces were white. However, on this chessboard, the black encampment was on Battler's side. He was reconstructing that arrangement, trying to play Beato's role. The hell kind of smile is that? Even Battler didn't expect that Beato would respond to that statement. Or rather, he was pretending to talk to himself, thinking there might still be some chance of her responding. Damn. I do like the, her hair being down and everything, but I don't like the emotionless gaze here. Beato's eyes reflected nothing, and her mouth told nothing. After begging him to kill her, the Golden Witch had become a corpse that had given up on life. She wasn't sleeping. She couldn't step down from this game and was therefore forbidden sleep. So those words must have reached her ears. However, they probably hadn't reached her heart. The Golden Witch would not sneer at Battler's moves, nor would she praise them or belittle them. By now, Beatrice was nothing more than a living doll. Even so, she would glance at him every once in a while. It would be an empty glance, but a glance nonetheless. Sometimes, she would seem to make some sort of gesture, or even move her lips. However, her movements never managed to communicate anything to Battler. You know what? Should we change the, I was just thinking about this. Okay, I guess I'm getting my trophies again. Should we change the, where do you go to do it? Should we change the text box? Which one are we on right now? We're on type B. What are the other ones? What do the other ones look like? I feel like now that we're in a brand new, arc of the game, maybe we should change the text box window here. What does L look like? I don't like L. I don't like L. Honestly, the one we have is really, really great. I really do like it. What about T? I don't like that at all. That's going to make things a little harder to actually read. What else we got? We have type N. You know what? I don't hate it. I really don't. You know what? I'll let you guys decide in the comments. Should we actually change it up? Should we change our window? I don't want to do L. I could do T. I'm just going to struggle here and there. But okay, we'll stay on B for now, because this is the nicest one, honestly.
ベアとバトラ君が話しかけていますよ。
なんとか言えよ。クスクスとかゲラゲラとか。いつもの黄色い笑いでいいから。
And shrill it was. Can you believe it? That shrill laugh of Beato's will never be heard again. However, even if she couldn't answer, his voice surely reached her. That was what Battler believed as he said these words. So he said it again.
どうやったらこの局面でこの指し手になるわけだ。わけがわからねえぜ。お前の指し手はよ。
この子の考えることはわけがわかりませんか?
Virgilia answered in her disciple's stead. Up to this point, she had done her best to avoid speaking for Beato. After all, there was a chance that Beato would respond in some way, and Virgilia didn't want to be the one to steal that chance. So Battler was going to have to bear with this silence, until Beato herself answered. Virgilia could no longer bear to watch Battler like this. Besides, Battler also wanted to hear what Virgilia had to say. He believed that conversation would reach Beato's heart.
ああ、さっぱりだな。ベアトの立場になって。 こうして駒を動かせば動かすほどにわからなくなる。
A serial murder following an epitaph. With that as a victory condition, I tried reconstructing the games from the witch's side, but I never ended up making the moves Beato did. In those games, I could find several incomprehensible moves that clearly worked against that victory condition.
さっぱりわからねえ。こいつの思考を探る旅路はあまりに険しすぎるぜ。
でもあなたは投げ出さないのですね。
ああ、約束した。
Kill me. Alright. Let me die. Lovely messages.
俺はこいつを
Lovely statements.
安らかに死なせてやると約束した。そしてそれは俺にしかできない。
Beato's right ankle was bound with a heavy cold steel shackle. It wasn't tied to anything, so it didn't restrict her movement. However, it symbolized restriction. It was a visualization of the bonds that prevented her from leaving the game until she either won or lost. And the shackle was probably hurting her. The mercilessly cold shackle tormented her over and over inside her waking dream. So there was never any sign of relief in her empty expression. Her eyelids would sometimes tremble like she was having a nightmare, and every once in a while she would let out a pained gasp. Unless I win, Beato will never be released from the curse that prevents her from sleeping peacefully.
良いのですか。第5のゲームはもう始まっているようですよ。
興味ね。
Why should I take part in any game unless Beato is my opponent? If that's the only alternative, then it's a much better use of my time to reconstruct previous games while taking a journey in search of Beato's thought process. I mean, we still have a lot to gain, I feel.
次のゲームマスターは私がやるわ。
Ah, shit.
依存ある？
Yeah, many.
ないわよね。
依存だらけよ。
Yeah, exactly.
ベアとは戦いを放棄して人事不正。ベアとの不戦敗でゲームオーバーでしょ。
確かにベアとはいろいろとあったんで、今はちょっぴりノックアウト気味。でも戦う気力を失ったわけじゃない。だからつまり私は解除役ってわけ。わかる？
I mean, Lambda Delta is actually on her side, technically. Beato was lying down on a deck chair almost as though she was sleeping. However, she wasn't sleeping. And she wasn't awake either. She was nothing more than a living doll that had given up on victory, who had asked Battler to perform her last rites, and who had surrendered everything. Of course, if everyone just sat around, the next game, the 5th game, would never be made ready. So Lambda Delta has succeeded Beato as the next game master, and announced that she had prepared the next game.
ふざけるな。これは俺とベアとのゲームだぞ。お前ら、どこの誰か知らねえが、勝手に話を進めるんじゃねえ。
あんたに意見は求めてないわ。どうすんのベル？受けるの？受けないの？
いいわ。あんたが引き継ぎなさい。
なんだと？ふざけるな！お前ら何者か知らねえが、俺とベアとを無視して勝手に話を進めるんじゃねえ。
落ち着きなさいよ。確かにプレイヤーが変われば指し手も変わる。あんたにとっては戸惑うことも多いかもしれないけど、それでも大きなヒントになりうるでしょ？
知らねえよ。勝手なこと言って仕切ってんじゃねえ。
ベアとのゲームを4つも繰り返して何もわからないんでしょ。
So I've noticed this out of Battler specifically, but I think a little bit out of Burn-Castell and Lambda Delta. Their sprites have been given like little updates. Their expressions are different. I think the hair with Burn-Castell is a little different. Like it's a little breezier, and yeah, I don't know. I guess we have like a little update with everybody, which is nice since we kind of see the same cast over and over and over again.
ならプレイヤーが変わるのは大きなヒントにな
Kind
る
of
と思う
similar to Higurashi as we went through those.
大きなお世話だ。これはベアトが用意し、俺を対戦相手に指定した。どこから湧いてきたのかもしれないお前らにかき回されるのはごめんだ。
ならベアトを起こして次の準備をさせて。できる？
ベアトはしばらく起きねえよ。それに新しいゲームなんて必要ねえ。あいつがこれまでに出題してきた4つのゲームの譜面だけで十分だ。
I actually don't think so. I think there's still a lot we don't really know. And especially since he really came up with some shitty answers for some things.
仮に第5のゲームがあるとしても、それはベアトが出題し、俺に挑むものだけで十分だ。お前らには何の関係もない。
Battler couldn't hide his irritation as the two witches called Lambda Delta and Burnkenstill, who had shown up well after the game's start, and who were now trying to take charge on their own. Well, it looked like these witches were of an even higher rank than Beato. So high, in fact, that even Beato's teacher Virgilia couldn't even come close. Battler had the feeling that he had seen these two several times before. However, this was the first time that he had known their names and spoken to them directly.
ベアトを起こせず、あんたに次のゲームを準備もできない。だから私が次のゲームを用意するわけ。私たちはね、いつ正気を取り戻すかもわからないベアトにいつまでも付き合ってられるほど気が長くないの。ね、ベルン？
退屈はごめんなの。イライラするほどに。
お前が退屈がろうが、俺たちは知ったことじゃねえ。
まあまあ、このパーフェクトなラムダデルタ様に任せなさい。
Perfect.
私がゲームマスターを引き継ぐ。大丈夫よ。あんまり絶対完璧にはプレイしないわよ。ベアトっぽくわけのわかんないフェイクや尻尾、ボーナスヒントをいっぱい用意してあげる。ベアトの世界をより理解するための大きなヒントにしてあげるわよ。
What's the worst that could happen? Letting my voiceless emotions explode. I slammed the table hard. The two witches didn't flinch at all. One grinned. The other looked indifferent, as though nothing had happened. The two of them just stared at me silently, as though they were reproaching me.
何？不満？あんたは私による第5のゲームを降りるっての？それって不先輩？
バトラは降りないわよ。もちろん第5のゲームにも参加するわ。
勝手に決めるんじゃねえ。お前らに俺は付き合わない。知ったことじゃない。
ならやっぱり不先輩ってことよね。このゲームは魔女側の勝ち。人間は屈服ってことでお開きでいいかしら。
降りるなら不先輩でゲーム終了だけど、たった一人残された妹が無限の世界のすべてでたどる。
Oh, I guess we don't have a choice now. Plus, if there's, more information to gather here, we might as well. With, Beatrice not actually being in control of this game, we may have more to gain than we do to lose. Because with each game, yeah, things do get more confusing, and it's, we stray a little further in some ways, but I think here we might be able to turn the tides just a little bit. When Bird could still mention Ange, Battler's expression changed instantly.
エンジェのことを気安く口にするんじゃねえ。
あなたにこの私、奇跡の魔女ベンジェにはひょっとしたら家族が帰ってくるかもしれない奇跡の余地が残されてるのよ。あなたが自らそれを捨てて、エンジェの無限の未来すべてを不幸なものに確定するのもまた。
I vaguely understood what she was saying. I mean, we get it. Until I win in Beato's game, I'll remain trapped in this bizarre world. And if I abandon that victory, then most certainly my parents and I will never return to Ange. For Ange's sake, even though I know that the witches are toying with me, I must keep fighting.
くそ。
なに？その不満そうな顔。自分の妹をグズグズのひき肉にされた怒り、もう忘れちゃったの？ プチプチブチブチ無数の焼けたペンチで引きちぎって細切れにしていくあの光景。
I mean, Ange did tell him not to turn
今
around.
度はちゃんと真正面で見ないとダメ。
Bernkenstill pointed the palm of her right hand upwards. As she did, a pale light gathered there, and some kind of blue glowing crystal appeared there. A scene was reflected on its sharp surface, but it wasn't the scene that surrounded them now. If you look deep into that crystal, that fragment, then you would probably learn what was reflected on there. That's what happened. If you stared at it, then you'd surely see the end Ange finally reached after waiting 12 years and giving up everything for the sake of her beloved brother. The scene of her death throes, as her entire body was torn to bits while she still lived. Without thinking, he grabbed at her collar, but as soon as he touched that which made up her form, it disappeared like foam on the waves. Then, as naturally as though she had been there from the beginning, Bernkenstill was leaning against a distant wall.
あなたがゲームを降りるなら、これはかけらでなく、確定した現実になる。その未来を紡ぐのは私じゃないわ。
Okay, I definitely believe that everybody has received some sprite updates of some sort, because we have never seen her smile. That is a new expression for her, I'm pretty sure. I know that Lambda Delta leaning forward and, you know, belittling people, that sort of look that she had, that is new. I don't remember that. So unless I'm forgetting a whole lot of things, I do think that we have like a mild sprite update for everybody, hopefully everybody, in this new arc here.
あなた自身よ。あなたが決めなさい。最愛の妹の未来をどうしたいのかを。
Battler's fists shook with anger, but even if he swung them down, he wouldn't be able to hit Bernkenstill. This witch was like a phantom or a cat who wouldn't even let someone pet her if she didn't wish for it. And she was telling the truth. For Ange's sake, I can't step down from this fight, even if these unpleasant witches hijack the game board.
さすがベルン。脅し方もえぐいわね。そういうことよ、バトラー。あんたにはゲームを降りることなんて許されてないの。あんたもベアとも私たちの退屈を紛らわせるゲーム版の駒でしかない。あんたのそのわけのわかんない怒りやイラつきさえも私たちには退屈を紛らわす最高のお菓子。まあその程度の怒りじゃ駄菓子程度だけどね。
30円で2枚入ってるカレー味のポテトせんべい程度ね。
Lovely.
魔女とも。
エンジェのためにも戦いなさい。そしてベアとのためにもでしょ。
In a way that was admonishing, or perhaps babying. Like the headache you get after eating something too sweet, Bernkenstill tormented Battler and smiled. By now, the host of this tea party, Beato, was absent. The guest witches were already making themselves at home.
どうすんの？後ろ宮バトラー。運命に屈しちゃう？降りちゃいなさいよ。魔女の駒にして遊ばれるなんてもうごめんなんでしょ？ベルンの駒は辛いわよ。きっとあんたもエンジェみたいに使い捨てにされるわよ。
あなたに降りる選択肢は与えてない。妹の未来のために戦い続けるの。私は味方よ。その未来にたどり着けるようあなたが勝利するまでサポートするわ。私が退屈するまで永遠に。
I can't let her provocation and casualry rile me up. These witches know that I get mad easily, and they're trying to take advantage of that. Battler withstood it all, and finally relaxed his clenched fists.
第5のゲームとやらが始めたいなら勝手にやればいい。好きにしろ。
好きにするわよ。あれれ、どこ行くのよ。
Even though Battler acknowledged this 5th game, he turned his back on them, much to Lambda Delta's surprise.
お前がベアとの代役を務めるってんなら、そこのベルーンカステルとかいう魔女が俺の代役を務めるのも勝手だろ。
道理ね。そうじゃないと不先輩になってしまう。
何よそれ。私が作る渾身のエピソード5をあんた無視するっての？
Well, unfortunately, we can't, but Battler sure can.
失礼しちゃう。
バトラーはしばらく休憩するそうよ。それまでの間、私がプレイヤーの代役を務める。それでどう？バトラー。
Worrying.
そうしやがれ。
In a way, I would say worrying. But okay.
なに？ラムダ。間抜けなバトラーじゃなくて、私がプレイヤーだと遊んでくれないの？
そんなわけないわ。ベルンと一緒に遊べて嬉しいわよ。さあ遊びましょう。ラムダデルタ様の超ハイパーでキュートに可愛いエピソード5を一緒に遊びましょうよ。
Oh boy.
一応、ベアトの作った世界なのよ。世界観ぶち壊しにしてないでしょうね。
大丈夫だってば。私そういうのの空気は読める方なのよ。ちゃんとベアトっぽい世界観でもっと面白い物語に仕上げてみせたわ。
I have a feeling that this one's gonna be really out there, guys.
バトラの休憩終わったら早く戻ってくるのよ。見逃すともったいないわよ。ベアトの秘密に迫れるようなボーナスヒントをたっぷり用意してるんだから。と見せかけてミスリード満載でますますに煙に巻く気なんだけどね。ちょっとこらバトラ、魔女の話聞いてんの？
He said he was gonna go take a break, and a break he's definitely taking up for sure. Without answering, Battler disappeared into the darkness. After shrugging and cackling, the witches immediately started playing with the game board they had stolen from Beato. It's just something that they can take? I mean, they're obviously going to manipulate it. Have their own game of sorts.
あの魔女どもにベアとのゲームは理解できるのか？
同じゲーム版を使う以上、この子にできないことはできません。しかし、この子がやらないことはやれます。
やらないこととは何だ？
チェスの道具はチェスで遊ぶために存在します。それを使ってトランプをすることはできない。しかしチェスの駒を相手に投げつけてぶつけたり、そういう行為をすることも不可能ではありません。しかしそれはチェスに対する冒涜だから誰もやらない。
Okay, so we should anticipate things to actually go all crazy. The pieces of the game are still here. You know, our setting, the characters, this and that. But what actually happens, oh, that remains to be seen. But obviously we're not going to get like a completely different story. And that definitely wouldn't be chess anymore. Beato's eyes seem to cloud slightly with sadness.
ふざけやがって。これは俺とベアとのゲームだ。他の誰にも冒涜はさせない。
At that time, gold butterflies gathered and Renove appeared, holding a tea set with black tea.
紅茶のおかわりはいかがですか？
もらえるか？
かしこまりました。いかがですか？お嬢様の思考を探る旅は。
Terrible.
さっぱりだが楽しんでるぜ。
しかしよろしいのですか？こちらでくつろがれていても。
あの魔女どもが勝手に進めてるゲームのことか？
ええ、先ほど紅茶をお届けに伺った時にはもう第一の殺人が起こり、
No way.
もうじきその次の殺人も起こりそうな気配でした。
When Beato and I were playing, the game would be paused whenever someone left their seats. However, those witches wouldn't pause that game just because I wasn't around.
ロノウェは奴らのゲームを見たのか？
一部ではございますが。
どうだった？
Renove lifted the pot high with an elegant gesture as he poured the black tea. After finishing that, he finally spoke. He gave us his impressions of it.
愛がありませんな。
愛ってなんだ？
これは失礼。女性風に申し上げるとです。男性風に申し上げるならば、義理が通らぬと申しましょうか。
I understood what those words meant. When I met Virgilia's eyes, she shook her head slightly and stared at the floor.
上辺は大変よくお嬢様のゲームに似せていると思います。しかし、根本が大きく異なっています。
それはベアとのゲームのルールに反することなのか？
いいえ、反しません。ラムダデルタ様はお嬢様のゲームのルールを実によく理解なされております。しかし
However, I mean, we know that those two are twisted, especially Lambda Delta for sure. Battler stood up. There was no need to make Renove say any more.
バトラク。
ロノウェ、すまない。せっかく入れてもらったけど、紅茶はいらねえぜ。
やはり参られますか。
ああ、俺たちのゲームに部外者はいらない。
Yes, sirree. These guys weren't even here in the beginning. Because I've been loafing about, crazier and crazier witches have been introduced. And now they've hijacked this game between me and Beatrice.
取り返さねえとな。ベアとのゲーム版は今は俺が預かってるはずなんだ。その俺がここでぼんやりしてるわけにはいかない。
ありがとう。その言葉をこの子に聞かせてやりたかった。
きっと聞こえていますよ。お嬢様はそれにお返事することができないだけです。
Beato lay there silently like a living doll with dull eyes. The game board she had created herself had been hijacked by incomprehensible people and was being turned into a mess. If I was designated to be her opponent, well then Beato must have created this game for me. I've got to take it back.
待ってろ。俺が取り返してくる。
Damn, I kind of feel bad for her. I don't know why. It's gotta be the look. That look that she has, that sadness. She's just in a consistent state of it. Of course, Beato didn't respond in any way. That's right. If she can't respond, then I have to protect it in her place.
行ってくるぜ、バルギリア。ロノウェ、黄金の眠り姫の面倒を頼むぜ。
はい、お任せ。
いってらっしゃい、バトラク。そしてどうかこの子のいないゲームにてこの子の何かを見つけてあげてください。もしそれを見つけることができたなら、たとえこの子が不在であっても、あなたはこの子と
そうだよな。ああ、全然ダメだぜ。
There it is.
俺は何をやってるんだ。
Let's go. And let's take it back.
魔女ども、待たせたな。俺の休憩は終わりだぜ。
When he faced the jet black heavens and yelled this, the whole world shattered, as though it were made out of thin glass. Then, as though it had been that way since the beginning, it transformed into that smoking room where Battler had fought Beato so many times, and which the two witches had now hijacked.
なにあんた、今頃戻ってきたの？超遅すぎ。もうゲームは2日目どころか大詰めも大詰めよ。
バトラがいつまでも来ないから私が勝手に進めちゃったわ。
Well, we're pressing the rewind button. Yeah, like you even waited for me in the first place.
ペルンはあんたよりずーっと頭が冴えてて痛快だったわよね。
うるせえ。プレイヤーは俺だ。代役の魔女どもは引っ込んでろ。
別に今から参加しても構わないけど、もう出番ないわよ。
確かに。だってもうクライマックスもクライマックス。 これで多分ベルンが詰めたゲームセットだもの。
なんだと。
いいんじゃない？最後の爪くらい見物しても。
そうね、おいでなさい、後ろ宮バトラー。もうほとんどおしまいだけど、私の作ったキュートでエレガントなゲーム、エピソード5、エンド・オブ・ザ・ゴールデン・ウィッチ。
I mean, we already knew the title. Okay, so we're at the end already. Cool. Oh, shit. Wait a minute. Oh, okay, this is the current state of everybody. Interesting. Alright, yeah, what do we got here? I mean, Kinzo is still actually being considered, like, a part of the game, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so Jessica died. Corpse discovered in the cousin's room on the upper floor of the guest house. The direct cause of death is unknown, but her neck was sliced open by a sharp blade. The wound was deep enough that anyone could easily confirm her death with absolute certainty. Hideyoshi, corpse discovered in a guest room on the first floor of the mansion. He had been pierced through the back with a demon stake. Its tip reached as far as his lungs. Because he was lying face down on the bed, suicide must be ruled out. George, corpse discovered in the cousin's room on the upper floor of the guest house. Damn, we're everywhere. The direct cause of death is unknown, but his neck was sliced open by a sharp blade. The wound was deep enough. Yeah, so he's absolutely dead for sure. Okay, so Hideyoshi's a little bit of an outlier already. Maria's actually out in the first go. Corpse discovered in the cousin's room on the upper floor of the guest house. Okay, so similar to these two. All right. The direct cause of death is unknown, but it is a sharp blade. Also, Rosa. Hideyoshi is still just the odd one out here. And, yep, neck sliced open by a sharp blade. And Genji is out. So, corpse discovered in the servants' quarters on the first floor of the mansion. Different like Hideyoshi. The direct cause of death is unknown, but his neck has been sliced open by a sharp blade. Okay, so it's weird. There's 5 of them that have their neck being cut open with a sharp blade, but then there's the demon stake with Hideyoshi. That is strange. I don't think anybody else's descriptions have changed whatsoever, so I don't think we have to go through everybody. We know who everybody is. But there's also the witch's side. Everything looks somewhat normal here, just laid out very differently. Okay, so we have Burnkinstill, the Witch of Miracles, also known as the Witch who knows that miracles don't occur. Participates in the 5th game as the player opposing Beato. However, from the very beginning, her aim has been to deny the Witch illusion. Her only goal is to destroy Beato and her world as a way to stave off boredom. Though she does deny the Witch illusion, she is no ally of battlers. Then we have Beatrice the Golden Witch herself, the Endless Witch as well. Beato's piece, who represents the Witch illusion, claims that the entire incident on Rokkenjima was caused by the Witch illusion. In the 5th game, she clashes with Burnkinstill, who denies this. Because she is no more than a piece, and the higher plane version of her has withdrawn from being the game master, she is not in a position to know the truth behind the 5th game. This means that she is in a different position than the one that she held in previous games. We have Battler, the man himself, designated by Beato as her opponent during the first 4 games. Disgusted at how Lambda Delta took over as game master for the 5th game, he is not taking part in it as a player. Lambda Delta serving as the 5th game's game master in place of Beato, who stepped down from the position in the 4th game. Because of that, the story of the 5th game, while appearing very similar to previous games, is expected to turn out quite differently. Just like Burnkinstill, she has no love for boredom, and might be friend or foe to Beato or Burn, depending on the situation. Virgilia, retired Endless Witch and Beatrice's master, made proper use of the Endless Magic and dedicated her life to the happiness and smiles of people. Taught Beatrice the Endless Magic and retired believing that Beatrice would devote herself to people in the same way. As well as being Beatrice's master, she was also the consulting mage of Beatrice's old home. For this reason, Virgilia interacted with her in the manner of a servant. It is said that this was responsible for causing Beatrice's egotism and excesses, so that is, I think, all pretty much the same. Renove, one of the 72 great demons, serves a master in exchange for various forms of compensation. presently has a contract with Beatrice as her butler, head furniture, has multiple underlings trained in housekeeping, and he himself is extremely capable as a butler, employing himself as has become a kind of status in the high society of witches. Furthermore, the cookies he bakes are superb, and witches will often line up to demand them. Should possess enormous magical power, but as he always shows deference to his master, his power level is an unknown quantity. Okay, so also the same. We have Gap, one of the 72 great demons. She is also Beatrice's friend, grants the power of teleportation as the mage requested. She uses this wonderful power only for pranks. Her favorite trick is hiding keys and bags on busy mornings. However, this power of hers is an ultimate weapon that risks delivering the lethal blow to a locked room mystery. Her queen bee-like strikes would probably penetrate all famous detectives and make them surrender. Then we've got the Seven Sisters of Purgatory. So there's Lucifer, advanced level furniture created by Beatrice. Lucifer is the eldest of the sisters and by extension also their leader. And for that reason, she claims to be the strongest of the sisters, but is secretly aware that she is actually the least talented. However, she carries herself with pride every day in an attempt to hide this fact, while living in terror of how she would be disparaged by her sisters if they ever found out. We'll read each one, though I don't think any of these are different. But it seems like they are playing a role in this one again. So we have Leviathan. Leviathan also, or often confronts the eldest sister Lucifer on behalf of the younger sisters. She has a fundamentally envious and brutal personality and is adept at finding others' weaknesses. However, she is better described not as envious, but as a crybaby who wants her own way. For some reason, she is not very shrewd and always ends up last in the sisters' order, drawing the short straw and crying. So Satan, or Satan, however you want to pronounce it, takes on the role of the ever-angry class president of the sisters. Diatribes tend to fly out of her mouth in rapid succession, so she is feared by the other sisters, and because of this fear, no one is willing to talk back to her, and she is actually quite lonely. From time to time, she will intentionally do things that she gets yelled at, but none of her sisters will admonish her for it, and making her feel empty. We have Belphegor. Belphegor is taciturn, assiduous, and the most trusted of the sisters as furniture. However, that is partly because of her demonic desire to turn her masters into lazy pigs. In that sense, she could probably be called the most demon-like of all the sisters. Her flaw is that she is too serious. Conversely, she is not used to being treated with kindness. We have Mammon. This is an important one right here. She's extraordinarily quick to take what she wants, and she never holds back, not even for her sisters. Her motto is to be greedy and have things all to herself, and for this reason, most arguments between her sisters are sparked and instigated by her. However, among the sisters, she is the most honest about her own emotions, and the most devoted to trying to please the opposite sex. Greedy but a hard worker, she will spare no effort to have a permanent monopoly on someone's affection. Beelzebub. She is the gourmet of the sisters and is known for being a big and picky eater. Her personality is similar to Mammon's, and they often vie to beat each other to the prize. She's also always talking about food, which makes her a calming influence among the sisters. However, she also has a disturbing desire to kidnap pretty boys and store them in the food cellar. Oh, but of course. Then we have Asmodeus. So she is the youngest of the sisters and is doted upon by everyone. This might be why she alone is kept out of the way when the conversation turns a little saucy. In the hopes that her older sisters will accept her as an adult, she is constantly on the lookout for a boyfriend. However, she sets her sights too high and spends her days fantasizing about the prince who will never come. I think we're good to go. All right, so we're jumping in midway through this time around, getting ready for the second Twilight, I believe. So the setup is already done. Already an established story. We've gone through it 4 times already. We know everybody kind of hates each other in a way when it comes to the inheritance. We know that everybody has their own goals here, and things get really awkward, and people get distrusting, and this and that. What's kind of strange is that Battler's actually the only quote-unquote kid that's actually left this time around. That is pretty different. because other times we'd be losing some adults. So, you know, the turntables have turned. Right now, no humans exist on this island except for those in this parlor. And with one exception, it has been shown that none of them have committed murder, and the culprit is among these people.
おいおいとなると決定的じゃねえか。
魔女が犯人で魔法で殺人を犯したわけでない限り。
あんたなの？あんたがジョージを、主人を殺したの？どうしてよ？どうして？
Why is Ava blaming her?
私は殺していません。私は。
In a panic and with a voice that was far from calm. Actually, hold on. I just want to verify, was there anything in their descriptions that stated what they were up to or anything? Like, I don't think so. Like, everybody, like, this is just the regular bios, basically, right? Okay, so Ava has lost everybody. Natsuhi and, what's his name? Kraus, that's right. They lost their daughter. Well, Maria and her mother Rosa, they're gone. So, you know, no issue there. Najo is still alive, so that's cool. One servant is gone, and Battler still has his parents. And Kinzo is supposedly still alive. In a panic and with a voice that was far from calm, in a manner that was, to put it coldly, unsightly, Aunt Natsuhi denied the suspicion placed upon her. However, there was no longer any way around it. She stood up, brushed back her long hair, pointed at Aunt Natsuhi, and said it one more time. What the fuck?
あなたが犯人です。Ushiromiya Natsuhiさん。
Hey, yo. We actually get introduced to this character. Okay, well, I can't look at this. Well, the music sure was a little different than what I'm used to. Oh, hey, we got a new trophy. Whatever that means.
夏日です。開けてください。
As she knocked loudly and repeatedly, Natsuhi yelled. Shortly after, there was a heavy clunking sound, and the sound of the door to Kinzo's study unlocking could be heard. Okay, again, like, there is no Kinzo here, so, you know, a little questionable here. As the door opened, a heavily sweet, venomous odor flowed out. Natsuhi was always ashamed of how she automatically grimaced at that, even though she thought it rude to the family head. Kraus was waiting for her inside the study. Natsuhi flew into his arms.
お父様は。お父様は。
落ち着きたまえ。今南條先生が見ている。
Oh shit. With an uncertain gait, Natsuhi walked towards the center of the study, supported by Kraus. Oh wait. Genji's still here. Wait, what the hold on, wait, what? I thought he was dead. Oh. Oh, no, everybody's alive now. Oh, okay. Interesting. But yeah, something seems to be going on here. There, a dignified bed fitting for the Ushiromiya family head could be seen, along with Nanjo, Genji, and Kumasawa.
南條先生。お父様は。
After sighing deeply, Nanjo left the side of the bed. On the bed, Kinzo could be seen lying down asleep. Oh shit.
大往生だ。
They're killing him off.
金蔵さんも心残りはなかっただろう。
Damn, Natsuhi actually really cared. I mean, we kind of saw that in episode 1 as well. Sobbing, Natsuhi slumped over the chest of that man who had fallen into a sleep from which he would never awaken.
奥様、どうかしっかり。お父様、お父様、こんな突然なんて。
Natsuhi couldn't stop crying over the death of the man whom she had loved like a second father. Kumasawa rubbed Natsuhi's back, consoling her. Kraus slumped into his late father's favorite chair. By sitting there, he might have been immersed in memories of his departed father. Or perhaps he thought that by sitting there, he might be able to understand just a bit of the madness of Kinzo's later years, which he had never been able to comprehend before. And Nanjo, just as he had when Kinzo once sat in that chair contemplating a chess move, turned his back and looked down over the outside world through a crack in the curtains.
同じ死ぬならせめて寝込んで1年後に死亡とかもう少ししかるべき準備の猶予期間を設けてから死んで欲しかったのに。それは逆だ。最後の瞬間までお元気だったことを喜ぶべきです。建前上はそうなるがね。
Nanjo understood that as well. Ushiromiya Kinzo, who had risen like a comet and glittered like a supernova in the post-war business world, had died. His funeral would probably be of a fantastic scale, and it would also be the ceremony marking Krause's inheritance of the headship. He would have to arrange everything as the host of the event, carry out funeral diplomacy perfectly, and make it clear to all of the Ushiromiya family still had enormous influence in the political and financial spheres. As Nanjo watched Krause, he was vividly reminded of the time when Kinzo had been suddenly selected as the Ushiromiya family head, when Kinzo had been lost and confused. In this way, he was able to understand Krause's distress and sympathize with it. Natsuhi's sobs eventually subsided. Watching this and leaving Kumasawa to care for Natsuhi as a fellow woman, Genji returned to where Krause was. And, as though asking what should be done, Genji lowered his head slightly.
手続き等は私と源氏さんでやろう。クラウスさんはまずは親戚の方々に連絡した方がいいでしょうな。
Krause, with his hands still over his eyes, didn't respond. Perhaps, even though he had known this day would come, Krause really couldn't hide his shock at how suddenly it had reached them.
私と南條先生にお任せを。旦那様はまずは奥様とご相談いただくのが良いかと思います。
Maybe she heard that, or maybe it was a coincidence. As though responding to Genji's words, Natsuhi came over. Her eyes were red from crying so much, but she apparently understood the heavy responsibility that had been imposed upon them even better than Krause did.
これからはあなたが栄光ある後ろ宮家の当主です。お父様の後を立派に継いだことを内外に示しましょう。この夏日、あなたの妻として棺を並べる日までおつ。
Trying to encourage her husband, who was overcome with shock, Natsuhi lent him some reassuring words. When Krause finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face, he looked up at the ceiling with a blank expression and let out a deep, deep sigh.
どうかしっかりお父様の残したものを食い荒らそうと目論む輩が大勢いるのですよ。私たちはお父様の名誉と財産を守るために戦わなければなります。それが後宮家当主の最初の仕事ですよ。
分かってる。分かっているとも。
南條先生と源氏はお役所や葬儀業者への手配をお願いします。特に源氏、お父様の葬儀にふさわしいものとなるよう特に手配を頼みますよ。
かしこまりました。
それから南條先生、お父様は病院でお亡くなりになったわけではないので、
場合によっては解剖が入るかもしれませんな。
なんとかなりませんか。亡くなったとはいえお父様の大切なお体です。傷をつけるなど耐えられることではありません。
気持ちはわかる。だがそういうところをきっちりすることも大切だ。
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like a legality to it.
それにこう言ってはなんだが難しい親族の方々が多いんじゃないかね。
I mean, yeah, that is true. In episode 4, the whole thing was like, oh yeah, is he even alive? You know, was he killed? Was he poisoned? There could be a whole lot of ways that the family could actually try to approach things here and argue very similar to episode 4. Who knew how those vultures, after the inheritance, might try to find fault with them? They might claim to have found some reason to suspect the cause of death, using that as a point of contention to start some trouble. Right now, it was important not only to pay Kinzo's remains the respect they were due, but also to solidify the position of the new family head Kraus.
わかりました。必要最小限にお願いします。間違ってもお父様の威厳が損なわれるようなお姿にしないように。
それは大丈夫だ。安心しなさい。とにかく金蔵さんのことはわしらに任せて、夏日さんはクラウスさんのそばにいてあげなさい。これからが大変なんだから。
わかっています。あなたもどうかしっかり。
Kraus was still staring blankly at the ceiling with a befuddled expression on his face. She understood the shock and heavy responsibility he bore. Natsuhi understood her husband's feelings as much as anyone.
親族への連絡は今だけは休まれてください。
Kraus didn't respond. Natsuhi, thinking him to be just a bit unreliable at the moment, decided that she must offer her support. Seeing her husband like this actually spurred Natsuhi to action, and a resolute expression rose to her face.
これから忙しくなります。今できることを始めましょう。夫はきっとお父様と二人きりで話したいこともあると思います。私たちは一度ここを退出しましょう。
そうでございますね。その時間はきっと今しか取れないでしょうから。
Being in charge of a funeral is tiring work. There's no time to shed tears. If Kraus were ever to be given time to cry for his dead father, that time would have to be now. Everyone agreed with Kumasawa's words. Even so, Kraus continued to blankly gaze up at the ceiling and didn't respond in any way. Natsuhi urged the servants to go.
私はジェシカにも話してきます。今やあの子が次期当主です。それにふさわしい自覚を持つようによく言い聞かせなくては。
待て。
As they each started to make their way out of the study, Kraus finally spoke up. They stopped walking.
はい。
待て。
はい。
Hadn't she already stopped walking? Just like her husband had asked? But despite that, he told her once again to wait. From those slightly weak words, Natsuhi understood that he'd probably stopped her because he wanted her to be by his side. No, I have a feeling about what he's gonna say. I think he's gonna have a horrible idea here.
私は夫と言います。何かあったらここに電話するように。
かしこまりました。だから待てと言っている。
When Kraus suddenly raised his voice, everyone jumped and turned around. Unable to comprehend what she had done to spark her husband's wrath, Natsuhi ran up to him.
どうしましたあなた。私は何か失礼なことを口にしてしまいましたか。だったらお許しを。
いや、違う。そうじゃない。少し待て。時間をくれ。
ええ、分かっています。心を整理するためにも必要です。私たちはその時間をあなたにあげようと。ここから静かに出ていくだけですよ。
That's not necessarily what he was saying wait on, though, is it?
だからそれを待てというのだ。いいか。誰もその場から動くな。一歩たりともだ。疲れたなら、椅子にでもソファーにでも好きに座ればいい。だから何も喋らずに静かに黙って、何もせずにいろ。
Those unreasonable words felt like a glimpse of how Kinzo used to be. Natsuhi couldn't hide her slight surprise at this behavior, which almost made it seem as though Kinzo had possessed her husband. Natsuhi told the servants to wait for the time being. She ordered them to sit on a sofa a short distance off, approached her husband, and spoke to him in a small voice.
あなたがお命じになれば、夏日はいくらでも待ちます。とどまります。ですからどうか、お気を鎮められてください。
Is this the moment where they all kind of agree together to basically lie going forward that Kinzo is still alive, to give off the impression that he is still alive, just cooped up in his study?
違う。そうではないのだ。
Was it really blood, or was he actually being possessed? Kraus's disorderly style of speech strongly resembled Kinzo's. As she watched this, Natsuhi became certain that Kraus was Kinzo's son after all, and that she was the true successor. Holy shit, that was a fucking firework. I don't know if that got picked up on my microphone. I don't know why people are launching fireworks right now. It's like the middle of May. and that he was the true successor more suitable than any other person.
夏日こっち
Kraus stood up and headed towards the window, trying to lengthen the distance between himself and the servants waiting on the sofa by even a small amount. Natsuhi realized that he must have something secret to discuss. It has to be exactly what I thought here.
はい、あなた
It has to be.
何事ですか？
親父に死なれてはまずいのだ
It is.
しかしもうお亡くなりになりました。そういうわけには参りません。
そうじゃない今はまずいんだ
どういうことですか？
親父の財産を担保にしている
Ah, shit.
相続問題になれば隠しをせない
So he's going to actually put up the idea that Kinzo is still alive to cover his ass.
担保ですか？
That's all it is. That's really all it is.
いかほど？
メロディーランドの時近藤君を応援したことがあっただろう
あの方とは縁を切れと申し上げたじゃありませんか。私には断ったと言ったはず。どうして？
男の義理というものがある
Yeah, but there's also a thing of being fucking stupid.
断れなかった
Kraus claimed to hold honor as a virtue. However, Natsuhi knew that he most often used this as an excuse for when he reluctantly went along with some deal that he just couldn't refuse.
お金に余裕があるならいざ知れず。この島のリゾート計画でかなりの借金をされたのではありませんでしたか？
ああしたさ方々で恩人に世話になったのだそれらを返済するためにも座しているわけにはいかない返済するためには金がいる金を生むためには金がいる金がなければ始まらないこの島の計画だって企画会社がおかしなことにならなければ順調だったのだ都の役人とも連携は取れていた東京都の新しい観光スポットになると知事の太鼓判ももらえていた私の根回しは完璧だったのだたまたま巡り合わせとタイミングが悪かったちょっとした運のすれ違い事故みたいなものだった
あれは事故なんかではありません。詐欺です。あなたは騙されたのです。初めから彼らはこの島のリゾート計画など描けていなかったのです。
そんなことはないぞ土方君のビジョンは先見性にあふれていた
Right.
世界と未来に目を向けた広大な視野は私夢が広がる世界に未来に夏日も一緒に聞いていただろう
ええ、聞いていました。そしてお帰りになられた後に申し上げたはずです。あの方はうさんくさい。語るのは未来ばかりで地に足がついていない。これ以上お付き合いしてはならないと。
土方君は立派な好青年だ彼の生き様からは学ぶことも多いぞ彼は若いが尊敬できる彼のことを侮辱することは許さんぞ
Kraus, I kind of have to agree with Natsuhi here, and I haven't even, like, met this person. Like, this is the first time we're hearing about this guy, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe we've heard inklings before. But I think you've been had here. Like, straight up. You fell for some shit.
あなたは同じことを月旅行の時にもおっしゃいました。先見性がある、未来がある、夢があると連呼され、その挙句はいかがでしたか？荒唐無稽な話だったと、あなた自らがお認めになったではありませんか。私はNASA の高官とか名乗るおかしな男が現れた頃から、これは絶対におかしいと確信しておりました。
Okay, yeah. Kraus, you've been had, bro. You're fucking dumb.
あれはあの外国人が国際的な詐欺師だったに過ぎない
And you learn nothing from that?
あの件については私も曽根崎氏も被害者だ彼の先見性は今をもって間違っていない将来必ず世界の大富豪が宇宙旅行をたしなむ時代が訪れるそしてその最初の事業は民間一社によって独占されるだろう着眼点は間違っていないそれを利用して世界中の投資家を騙している国際的な詐欺集団がいて
I think this is the largest the text box has ever gotten.
曽根崎という男もその一味だったと申し上げているのです。あなたはどこまでお人よしなのですか。どうしていつもうさんくさい話を疑いもせずに乗ってしまうのですか。
訂正しろ曽根崎氏は優秀な未来ある男だうさんくさくなどない彼の語る夢は未来を先取りしているからこそ それが見える者には妄想にしか見えんだけだ。女のお前には未来など見えん。
ええ、女の私には未来など見えません。でも現在なら見えます。私の目の前で狡猾な二枚舌の詐欺師たちに丸め込まれ、騙されてなお妄信している哀れな夫の姿なら見る。
黙れ。お前には金持ち業も経済も何もわからん。夫の仕事に口は出すな。妻は家事だけをしてればいい。
Oh, there he goes.
お前は黙っていろ。
You know, like, the servants in Nanjo, they're hearing all of this, I'm sure. Without another word, Natsuhi fell silent, just as Kraus had hoped she would. She was already far beyond anger and sadness, and the emotion that lay on the other side of those was an almost indifferent pity. Kraus, who had been in awe of Kinzo since he was very young, had started to subconsciously admire the way his father lived. Without realizing it, he had come to believe that he could only be recognized as a man in his own right if he surpassed his father. However, Kinzo had been a mad genius, the likes of which had never before been seen in the Ushiromiya family's long history. That talent was a gift from heaven, and it definitely wasn't genetic, much less something that could be learned. I still really do think that he's going to utilize, you know, this opportunity here to tell everybody, like, hey, because of my shitty situation, we got to keep this shit on the down low, honestly. But we're going to have to save it here, and I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to be getting. It has to be, right? Like, come on. It looks like I've got a whole new set of saves, unless I just kind of lost all of mine. It's possible that, like, I didn't, but I don't know. I tried to move everything over to the answer arc folder, but who knows if I did that correctly. But all right, there we go, guys. We are, oh yeah, I mean, all of my stats have reset too. So, yeah, that's new. We almost made 1,000 clicks already. Almost. But yeah, we'll wrap it up on this one. Thank you all for tuning in to our first video of the answer arcs. We'll get there eventually. Oh, by the way, yeah, I've seen that character that we saw a little bit ago that was accusing Natsuhi of being the culprit before we cut to the opening. So, like, obviously I see shit on Twitter, but if I don't know, like, if I don't immediately recognize something, I'm jumping away from it. I don't want to be spoiled. And that actually stretches back to whenever I was reading Higurashi, and I had no intention of reading Umineko back then. So anytime I came across something Umineko related, you know, I had seen Burn Can Still way before as well, before I even knew Rika and her position. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about. I didn't know what any of it meant, so there were no spoilers to be had because the connections were never there. And then, like, once I learned who these characters were and their backgrounds to an extent, well, I don't even remember what it was I necessarily looked at, so I was never spoiled. Now, when it comes to this other character that we briefly came across here, I know absolutely nothing about her. I think her name is, like, it's not Erica, is it? It's something like that, though. And her last name, it's not, she doesn't have Furude in her name, but it's, like, very similar to it, I think. That is it. And I never delved into it further because I don't want to accidentally spoil myself. So that's the extent of me knowing that character. I have no idea what to expect from her, but goddamn have I been looking forward to finally coming across that character, because she's everywhere. I don't know why, but she is just everywhere on Twitter and shit. So at least that'll, you know, potentially prevent further possibilities of me spoiling myself. Hard to say, though. But thank you all for tuning into this one, guys. It feels great to be back with Umineko after a short little break. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. And if you are excited and you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe for more, because you bet your fine ass there will be more. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.